How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about A Quiet Place, Part 2 from 2021. This just came out relatively soon ago, and is once again directed by John Krasinski, and once again stars Emily Blunt. And I really do have to appreciate that. Whenever you get a sequel and you keep as much of the original team around as possible, that's really great, because sometimes sequels don't do this and you can really feel the difference. And then when they do, A Quiet Place Part 2 really does feel like the same world as Part 1, the same atmosphere, and really this movie actually feels like a continuation. They literally Part 2, not just another one, but more Quiet Place, the second piece of it, if you will. This movie, like I said, just came out. It is really good to, be going back to the theaters. This, I think, also has some streaming options as well. If you can't go out, I'm sure there's a way for you to see this. But really, if you can see it in theaters, if your area allows this, I would definitely recommend it. Much like the first one, there's a lot of suspense, and when you're in there with a big crowd, you really do feel it more. And if you do have a way to see this in theaters, I would definitely recommend it. I saw it in theaters, and it was a very, very fun experience. I'm a big fan of the first Quiet Place. I have the Steelbook right here, and I was really, really glad to pick this up. It is one of the better new horror movies, and I'm glad to say that this keeps up pace. When you had John Krasinski, an actor primarily known for The Office, a comedy, and then he's directing a horror movie, everyone didn't really know what to make of that, and then it comes out, and it really blows you away how good it was. When he's gonna do a second movie and a sequel, which is intrinsically a little harder, you kind of go, okay, with this, we're gonna see if A Quiet Place Part 1 was just a fluke. And sometimes, you get directors, they come in with a great first movie, and then the rest of their career kind of goes downhill. This proves that John Krasinski is a good director, and that Quiet Place 1 was definitely not a fluke. So I am really looking forward to what else he does next. If they do another Quiet Place, I'm there for that. If he does any other movie, I will definitely check it out as well. So I'm pretty excited. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points, and I do want to make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what this movie's about. But that being said, if you want absolutely no spoilers, if you want to go into this movie blind, I definitely recommend it. We'll leave it at that, and you can turn off the video now. But if you don't mind knowing a little bit about the setup, not the payoff, just the setup, then that's what we're going to be talking about right now. We open up with a prologue segment, Day 1. This is something that wasn't in the first Quiet Place. We jumped a little bit forward in time, and getting to see it now as opposed to then, we know what the world will become. So this whole opening segment, the first day, has much more weight behind it, especially also the fact that it's daylight, you get to see the monster a bit. It's good this wasn't in Part 1, because, otherwise it would have, spoiled a little bit too much about the monsters. But there's a softball game, the family gets separated for a moment, and you get to see the creatures coming down, a big asteroid from outer space. And there's a few really cool scenes in this. For example, you get to see the store, the little pharmacy thing from the prologue of the first movie. You get to see that before it was all damaged and run down, which is an interesting detail. You get several nice long shots, which is something that happens throughout the movie. John Krasinski uses long shots really well. It's a way to keep you in the story, but I find that a lot of times directors try to be too flashy with their one-shots, and it takes you out. They try to do way too long one-shots, and you can tell they're artificial. It does it for the sake of the story, and they all came out very good looking. Really do like that. Spielberg, another director that would use long shots, but they wouldn't be flashy. They would just be used to keep you in the story. Very much like that, and I really did like the direction here. You also get to see John Krasinski and his family are smarter than the rest of the people, and it's not like they're superheroes or they're, unrealistically figuring this thing out. You can just see that these are smart people making good decisions and how that helps them out when the disaster strikes. And I really do like this, and it was really, really cool. And I also like, at the beginning, you don't know the rules, you don't know how to survive, but it did a clever thing where they pointed out that being silent to hide from the monster is kind of a natural inclination, where hiding, be quiet. And before they know that that's the big thing, you can see that they kind of stumble upon it just as a natural inclination, and I really did like that as well. Anyway, after day one, we cut forward to right after the end of the first movie, and we get to see them packing up and leaving their farm, and it's a pretty cool scene, them getting ready to go on their journey, and that they're going to go on a journey. And it all leads up to them walking down those sand paths from the first movie, and a very awesome shot where the sand path ends and they step off of it, and you know that this is the farthest away from home that they've been in a long time. And that is really, really cool. They go a little bit farther and they're going to one of the other campfires. I do love that this was something that was set up at the first movie, and it was a cool world building thing, but it's not till right now that we get the payoff, them going to someone else's camp, and it turns out it's a guy they knew a little bit before the world kind of all broke down. So they kind of know him, but they don't know the new version of him, and they find out that he's the last survivor of his group. Everyone else, including his family, is all dead, and he has major remorse over this, but he's still a decent guy. He's just in a bad spot, and he's in this cool foundry place. There's a part really, really far underground, surrounded by lots of concrete and steel, and in turn you can whisper a bit down there. He says, unless they're right overhead, they're not gonna hear you. And he has a big, I think it's a furnace that you can crawl into, and it's pretty much soundproof and they won't notice you in there, but there's an air issue because you can't lock yourself in a thick container too long. So it's a cool setup and a cool setting, and you'll get to play around in here a lot as time goes on. Now, as time goes on, they're in a different part of the world, and they look at the radio transmissions looking for something, and they find a radio channel playing Somewhere Beyond the Sea on a loop over and over, and because they moved to a different part of the world, this is the first time they can hear this signal, because it's not a big band, They look at the map, and they figure out where this signal must be coming from, and the daughter has an idea. One, if the radio's still going, there might be people down there, and two, they can change the song from Somewhere Beyond the Sea to that high-pitched frequency her hearing aid puts out, and in turn, you have a portable radio, you have a portable monster-killing device. So it's a cool plan, but she knows her mom's not going to go along with it, so she sneaks out to do it herself, kind of being a little overconfident there. They find her missing the next day, and the mom says, look, I have a little baby that will 100% need me, and there's no way I can leave the baby, and I don't want to take it on the road. So she tells her old friend that they just met, I have to rely on you to find my daughter and keep her safe. So the two of them are going out on the road, and Emily Blunt has to stay behind, and from there, it is kind of an A and a B plot. You do get the daughter definitely having the A plot, and Emily Blunt does have the B plot, but there is enough for her to do, and I was worried when the daughter went off that we wouldn't see Emily Blunt too often, but you do cut back to her fairly a bit, but it is definitely more the daughter and this new guy's story, and you get to see, the young character, and you do get to see this old guy that they have to, reignite hope for the world in, and it is a really cool journey, these two going out into the world, But I'll go ahead and stop talking about the plot there because I don't want to spoil. That's just the setup for it, you know. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the things with this movie. Like I said, this movie proves that Quiet Place 1 is not a fluke. And John Krasinski, beautiful, beautiful cinematography and shot choice. And he knows how to do one of the most important things in horror, and that is set up tension to make you, understand the danger that a character's in, understand the potential danger, and just make every little situation tense where a character will be doing should be a minor task, but you know the dangers of the world around them, and you're like, don't mess it up, don't mess it up, and it really, really works still. Now, the first one, the creatures were such a mystery, you didn't know too much about them, they were mainly in the dark, and now you have a way to kill them, and you've seen them before. This should have been where the creatures aren't as scary. This really shouldn't have worked, but it does, and there's two things with this. One, as you get bigger and better, the world you're in gets bigger and scarier. The first one was a little farmhouse, and in this one, they go into a much bigger world, walking off the sand trail and seeing all this stuff around them. So even though they're stronger, the world's bigger. And major props for not turning it into an action movie. Instead, they make it much more an adventure movie. And a lot of times in horror movies, especially think Terminator versus Terminator 2, they make it an action movie, and in turn, people forget it was ever a horror franchise. And I really do like this, where if they made it too much of an action movie, then if we did get Quiet Place 3 and 4, the sequels would just devolve into mindless action. And I much prefer an adventure movie. And this was really, really cool to see them go out into the world. Also, the weapon to destroy them. It's a way to get them, you have the sound, the frequency, and then you shoot them. But this weapon isn't the easiest to use. You have to have kind of a two-man setup. And also, if you're by yourself, it is really hard to operate this thing. And that is one thing I did like, is it's a way to kill them, but it's not just all of a sudden you're mowing down all these creatures, It is still hard. It's possible, but it's hard. And that is one thing I really did like with this setup too, is, they kept the creatures scary despite having a way to defeat them. It's still scary and still tense, and that is hard to do after the place where you left it in the last one. But it is really, really cool that they did that. Kind of weird, because these aren't really the same genre, but this sequel wound up reminding me a lot of the John Wick sequels. The John Wick sequels, they stayed super consistent in their quality, and they picked up one after the other right where they left off. And this, like I said, really does feel like a direct continuation. It feels like more of the movie, and you get to explore these characters more. The daughter, when she's handed so much of the script, she really does carry it. Like, you knew her character and you liked her character from the first one, but this is allowing her to go from a kid to essentially the movie's star, and like to the point where if they're smart, they really should put her in the next Alien movie, because she is really good at this sort of, creature horror, and it's really cool. Like I said, if Disney happens to be watching, put her in the next Alien movie. That would work very, very well. But anyway, if they make part 3, I'd definitely be down for it. Part 2 is on the same level as part 1. I really enjoyed it, and it's a clever sequel that found a way to keep things going and not just mess it all up in part 2. So, like I said, pretty much on par with the first one, does some different things, a bigger world, and still manages to make the creatures scary despite the fact that we've seen them and we know their weakness, and still really tense. If you get a chance to see it in theaters, I definitely recommend doing so. But anyway, if you're fans of the first one, definitely check out part 2. More more of the story really good, and it really does feel like part 2 where it's like one big movie. Anyway, I really did like this, and I definitely recommend it. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping my channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist at the bottom. If you want to see more, you can click there and see more stuff that are in some way related to this. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.